This Week in Startups is brought to you by Braintree. Looking to set up payments for your business? Braintree gives your app or website a payment solution that accepts just about every payment method with one simple integration. Plus, we'll give you your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free. To learn more, visit braintreepayments.com/twist. And Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code TWIST at checkout to get 10% off. Squarespace. Build it beautiful.
Hey everybody, today on the program, Emily Kirsch, who is the CEO and co-founder of powerhouse.solar, which is a solar incubator here in the Bay Area, actually in Oakland. And she graduates 4 solar companies every 6 months, and she's done this 3 or 4 times. She's absolutely brilliant, and we have a really long, deep discussion of how solar specifically is going to change everything in the next 20 years, and we go through a lot of her portfolio companies. It's extremely educational. I learned a ton. You're going to love this episode. It's super important, especially with oil going down below $30 a barrel. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups, the program where we talk to entrepreneurs and investors about where the world is headed. Now, one of the big stories of our lifetime is obviously energy. It's possible that we will live in a world where energy becomes radically cheaper than it is today. And in fact, in 2016, we've seen something bizarre that nobody ever thought would happen. The price of oil has completely collapsed. It's causing chaos in the world. In fact, places like Saudi Arabia and other places in the Middle East are being thrown into bedlam because they don't know what to do if oil goes down to $10 a barrel. It's going to change everything. And one of the driving forces in the collapse of oil, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert on this, is solar and alternative energy. The price of solar has gone down so much, and we'll find out exactly how much in a minute. Our guest is kind of brilliant when it comes to this stuff. The price of solar has come down so much, and the usage of electric vehicles has gone up so much. And listen, that's one of the main drivers, one of the main uses of gas, right? And then we're finding all kinds of new oil in Norway and here in the United States, the shale boom. Things are changing faster than I think anybody anticipated. In fact, I was reading a Wall Street Journal article from just 5, 6, 7 years ago because I wanted to get the context, and they were predicting $350 a barrel oil. It is now less than 10% of that prediction. The world changes radically when technologists, startup founders, actually decide to try crazy ideas, experiments known as startups. Now, a lot of startups get their start in incubators. This is another phenomenal trend. So my guest today is Emily Kirsch, and she runs an incubator just for solar, and it's called Powerhouse, and she started it, I believe, in 2013. Welcome to the program, Emily.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's Kirsch. I got it right?
You got it.
All right. So Emily, you started Powerhouse in 2013. What was your idea there, and what gave you the gumption? Who are you that you decided, I'm going to start the Y Combinator, the Techstars of solar?
So we started Powerhouse in 2013. Before that, I was working on the policy and politics side of renewable energy. And it's important to lay that policy foundation for any industry to succeed. So I enjoyed it. But anyone who's worked in policy or government who's listening knows how tedious and bureaucratic and slow that can be. And if you're an entrepreneur at heart, you might not have the patience for that. So my former boss, a guy named Van Jones, was tapped to join the Obama administration. And shortly after he left, he called me and said, hey, there's this startup called Mosaic, and they want to pilot their platform in Oakland, and they want some local connections to help them get that started. Are you interested in working with them? So I was, and I did. And Mosaic had a guy named Danny Kennedy serving on their founding board, and he was providing them with free office space at his old office in Berkeley. And so I got to know this company. I got them connected with their initial customers in Oakland, fell in love with the startup process, and saw the kind of benefit that Mosaic was getting by having somebody like Danny, who was well known and respected in the industry, on their founding team as a founding board member. And I saw how much benefit they had from having this free office space in Berkeley.
Right.
And I thought there's got to be 100, if not 1,000 other Mosaics out there that if given the right kind of support and mentorship, connections to customers, connections to capital, the right kind of space, the chances of their success and the expansion of the solar industry is going to be so much faster than if entrepreneurs are out there isolated on their own trying to do this in isolation.
How much has the government played a role in the boom in solar? Because a lot of people I talk to, obviously I'm friends with a lot of the Solar City folks, the subsidies that are given were quite significant, and the government, in fact, funded and gave huge loans, I think, to a bunch of these solar companies. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But solar seemed to be anchored in that if it wasn't subsidized, it wasn't going to happen. But now I just talked to somebody who did their house, and they said, I looked at Solar City, I looked at like these places where you rent it from, and I just decided, you know what, I want to spend the 25 or 35 grand myself because it's so cheap, and just own them myself. So take us through, the audience as well, like what exactly happened 10 years ago with solar and these discounts, and where the solar discounting and government support is, because it does seem to me that if oil is so cheap, there's this big fear that, people are going to stop installing solar. Is that true? And then what's the narrative arc of solar subsidies?
I think the ramp of solar in the industry is inevitable. It's not a question of if our lives will be powered by sunshine, it's when and how quickly and how cheap it'll be. And over the past 5 years alone, the cost of panels themselves has gone down 80 or 90%.
Wow.
So it's incredible.
In 5 years?
In 5 years.
So it would have cost $1, now it costs 10, 20 cents.
Exactly.
The same panel.
Same panel, but even more efficient. And that's what I love about solar is it's a technology, it's not a fuel. So fuel inherently, it's a finite resource. It gets more and more expensive as we have less and less of it, even though we're going to see some short peaks and valleys as we're seeing with oil right now.
Right.
But over time, it gets more and more expensive. Solar is the exact opposite. As we continue to innovate and get more efficient with our manufacturing, the cost of solar decline, like we've seen 90% reduction in the past 5 years in the panels. And so what that leaves us with is an incredible opportunity to innovate in the software and finance space, because for residential installations like your friends, the biggest cost, more than 50% of the cost of them putting solar on their roof was actually in the soft cost, not the stuff you can point to and look at, but rather the customer acquisition, the data, the design, the asset management. And so that's our focus at Powerhouse, and the role of the government and the role of subsidies is an important one. Right. Yes, solar will eventually be cost competitive with fossil fuel, with or without the subsidies. But if we're going to subsidize anything, let's subsidize the stuff that's going to preserve our existence on this planet.
And when you do a house today, it seems like 40 or 50 grand is the cost to put solar on a house. How much of that gets subsidized today? 10, 20 grand?
It's a great question. So just recently, at the end of last year, following on the heels of the climate negotiations in Paris, Congress extended the investment tax credit. And that's a 30% tax credit for solar installation for residential customers. And that was pivotal in the increase in jobs and revenues that solar companies are able to bring in. So there was a big question of whether that would be extended, and Congress did the right thing by extending those subsidies for the industry.
So if you spend 45 dimes putting solar on your house, you get 15 back from the government.
Exactly.
So that's pretty big, but some people will just do it anyway now. When does it when will it go down to, 15, 20, 30K to put a house online? Like, when do they end the subsidies? Is that going to be in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, so it is a 5-year step down of the subsidies, which is much better than a cliff, which, if it was a cliff, that would have been a bad look temporarily for the industry. But having this gradual ramp down means that companies have the predictability to continue to scale.
So it's going to go from a third to 25%, 20, whatever?
Exactly. And in 2015 alone, a new report just came out from the Solar Foundation that the solar industry now employs more people in the U.S. than Google, Apple, Facebook, and Twitter combined.
Right. So it's over 100,000 people easily.
208,000 people.
208,000 people are installing solar panels.
That's right. 35,000 of which were added. New jobs were added in 2015, and a projected 30,000 more will be added this year.
It's amazing. Where are all these solar panels being made? Are they all being made in China? And is there some finite resource there that's a bottleneck? Because I heard at one point there was some problem with getting enough panels to be installed because there were so many subsidies, because Europe is also subsidizing heavily. In fact, Germany last year, I read, had a day where renewables powered greater than 50% of the country's electrical needs. Now, it was a day they didn't need air conditioning, and it was a weekend day, so it's a little bit of a fugazi statistic. But Germany seems to be shutting down their nuclear plants, and they're really leaning into this alternative energy. So
They absolutely are. And the irony is that they have a fifth of the sunshine that the U.S. does. So if Germany can do it, pretty much anyone can do it. And Germany has been a leader in the policy initiatives and the regulatory environment to make solar accessible to everyone. And that's why we're seeing the kind of production. They're the world's leader in solar production.
Oh, is Germany making them there in Germany?
They are a leader in manufacturing more inverters than panels. Most of the panels, like you said, are manufactured in China.
Got it.
Which, yes, we want more manufacturing here, and we're seeing Solar City trend in that direction to bring
Solar
those
City's
jobs.
going to make them here?
They acquired a company called Solevo last year, a panel manufacturer. So they're actually going to be manufacturing panels onshore, and that's a trend that I think we're going to continue to see in 2016.
And what do you think this new oil bottoming out is going to do to the industry? Because I know, sales of the Prius and also EVs, it skyrocketed and became a big marketing rally around, because we had over $100 a gallon oil and we hit $5 gasoline in some places in the country. Do you think that this is going to cause a slowdown, or what are people's predictions about this bottoming out of oil?
I think it'll cause a slowdown in the publicly traded markets for companies that are public, like Solar City. We did see stock prices go down as oil went down. People irrationally equate oil with electricity. They're two different sources of energy.
Yeah, coal is what we power most of our homes with for electricity today, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But increasingly, we're seeing more and more power coming from the solar industry.
Okay, when we get back from this very important partner message, sponsor break, I want to talk about the companies that are in your incubator and what it takes to launch a company. Where are the opportunities in 2016 and beyond for starting a solar company? If, hey, you got Solar City out there and you have all the panels made already, what are the opportunities when we get back on This Week in Startups? Hey, everybody, let me tell you a little bit about Braintree. It's a full stack payment solution for all your payment types for your customers. Yes, you can do mobile payments fast, easy, seamless, and secure. And you can add it to your apps with just a few lines of code, and then you'll be able to accept Apple Pay, Android Pay, PayPal, Venmo, credit cards, and of course, Bitcoin, everything. And if some other new way to pay people comes along, the Braintree team will support that too. Developers love it. Founders love it because it's got superior fraud protection, fast payouts, and continuous world-class support. You'll have fewer abandoned carts, more sales with Braintree's best-in-class mobile checkout. And their customers include, are you ready for this? Uber, Thumbtack, Hotel Tonight, Airbnb, GitHub, and StubHub. And I'm an investor in 2 of those 6 companies. And you'd be in good company to be in that class of companies. Well, here's a call to action, everybody. They're going to give you $50,000 in transactions fee-free. Yes, that's for the people who are on the This Week in Startups audience. If they go to braintreepayments.com/twist, braintreepayments.com/twist, and you'll get $50,000 fee-free. You can't go wrong with that. Developers love it. It's easy to use. What more do you need to know? Thank you to my friends at Braintree for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. Okay, let's get back to the program. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest today, Emily Kirsch, and she is the co-founder and CEO of Powerhouse. Go ahead and visit powerhouse.solar. There's a new top-level domain name, powerhouse.solar. It is the first solar dedicated incubator and accelerator, and they're in Oaktown, Oakland, right across from San Francisco and south of Berkeley. 20 companies are currently in-house there, 200 entrepreneurs and teams operating around the world, 3 exits in the last 12 months. Lots of stuff going on there. But let's go through some of the companies that you have currently in there. I have one here, Mosaic, which we talked about a little bit earlier. We'll pull them up on the screen. What does Mosaic do?
Sure. So Mosaic provides a really important financing tool for people to go solar. So you mentioned earlier your friend who put up cash to go solar. And it used to be that was the only way to do it. So it was reserved for very wealthy people who had the capital sitting aside that they could throw.
Ed Begley. Ed Begley could afford it. Nobody else.
Exactly.
The guy from St. Elsewhere.
So they had $20,000 or $30,000 dollars sitting around. Most people who might want to go solar don't. And so we saw some interesting trends in solar financing, first with solar leasing, which allowed people to actually put zero money down, lease the system. The solar company owns and operates and manages the system, and you just buy the energy that you produce at a lower rate than what you're paying your utility.
Right. Is that what Solar City does?
Solar City, everyone does that now. Solar City, Sunrun,
So is Solar City then, they own all these panels, so that makes them an electric company eventually.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they'll be your new utility at some point.
If you define a utility as who produces and distributes electricity, then absolutely they fit the bill.
Wow, incredible. Okay, so keep going. What does Mosaic do?
So Mosaic, so leasing was a huge trend, but then homeowners started to say, well, I actually want to own the system. I value my home ownership. I want to value the ownership of my solar system. So Mosaic came along and said, we can provide a loan that achieves the same goal of the lease, but at the end of the life of the loan, you actually own your system.
Got it. So if you go to someone like Solar City, they do the financing, they own it, they install it. Here, you could just do the financing and then you find somebody to install it.
Exactly.
Are there independent installers of solar systems?
Thousands across the country.
Thousands. Absolutely. So Solar City is like the biggest, but then there are all these independent ones that do it.
Exactly. And Solar City, last time I checked, about 40% of the market share.
Really?
Yeah, close to 11,000 employees.
Wow.
Really incredible growth.
Yeah. Okay. So Mosaic does that financing. And then what is this Bright Current? What do they do?
Sure. So one of the things that I love about Powerhouse is that all of these software and finance companies play different roles in the solar value chain. So everything from lead generation and customer acquisition, which is what Bright Current does, to data extraction, to design, to asset management. So Bright Current plays a really important role on that front end of the value chain, and that's acquiring customers. Most people are surprised to get your friend to go solar. The average cost is $2,500 to $3,500 per person just to get them to sign up to go solar.
So the lead gen, finding the person and convincing them and getting a hot lead for Solar City or whoever, over $2,000.
Exactly.
So they just, Bright Current just says, hey, we're going to do all the sales and get the leads and sell them.
Exactly. So the founder, a guy named John Bourne, who used to work at Sun Edison, and he had this idea for meeting people where they were at as they're shopping at Costco or they're at Best Buy or they're at True Value getting a hammer. And they set up kiosks and say, hey, have you thought about going solar? Do you own your own home? And so major solar companies like NRG, Sunrun, Sungevity, they outsource their retail sales to Bright Current. So when he started the company, he was 27. He's now, I think, 30, has 100 employees in 5 states.
So brilliant.
It's a great idea.
He gets all the leads and then he says, hey, here are your, it's almost like an insurance broker would say, like, here are the 5 different insurance people you could use. I'll send the lead to them and you get your quote back.
Exactly.
How many homes are there in the United States? Like 150,000 or something? And how many of them have solar? I mean, are we going to get to the point where we're done? When does that happen?
So we haven't even hit, there are 40 million roofs, homes in the US that are suitable to go solar. We haven't even hit 1 million yet.
What?
I know. We'll hit 1 million in 2016.
So in 2016, we're going to hit 2%. Or 3% or so of the market.
Exactly. But there's so there are 40 million rooftops that are suitable for solar, meaning they're not shaded, they're facing the right direction, they have the right credit score. There are 90 million other households who most people want to, if given the choice between fossil fuel and solar, people want solar.
Yeah.
So there are 90 million other households that if given the opportunity to go solar, they might. And that's where community solar fits in. And community solar is the idea that if you are one of those 90 million people across the country and you rent or your home isn't suitable for solar, you can actually buy solar energy from a local facility.
Got it.
And know that you're powering your life with a renewable resource.
Right. So you don't actually have it, but you're selecting in a checkbox, I don't want to put coal and whatever in the atmosphere. I want to do this. So people will do the right thing eventually by being able to buy that. But what do you think the timeline is then if we're at 1% after a decade of people running around, or we're at 2 or 3% after a decade? Does that mean it's going to take another 100 years to put solar on everything, or you think it will happen in 20 years, 30 years?
I think it'll happen sooner. We're seeing a double in solar adoption every year. So if that continues, then it's a much quicker timeline. Yeah,
when things double every year, you don't notice it until the last 5 years of the doubling cycle, when it's like, oh my God, we're done. It's like broadband, right? Who has broadband? And then all of a sudden everybody has broadband.
Exactly.
You don't even see that little moment when if you blink, you miss it. What impact would that have on the United States if we got, let's say, half the homes on solar? What impact would that have?
I think it would localize our energy consumption and production. So what we're seeing now is energy is produced in a centralized way. So big power plants, and it's inherently it's not as safe as it could be if it was distributed. So what I love about solar is it's distributed, it's democratized, it's decentralized. When it's on our homes and schools and hospitals, then we can produce and consume energy locally, and that creates more jobs. That is better for the overall
super
economy.
Scary. And I heard this to the utility companies, from what I understand. I heard the utility companies are on tilt trying to figure out how it works. And the other thing I heard was there's a limit to how much solar you can put on your home. So when we get back from the commercial break, I want to ask, why can't I put so much solar on my home that I could potentially, power 10 homes when we get back on This Week in Startups? Listen, I could talk to you all day about Squarespace. I love this product. All of our sites are built on Squarespace. Why? Because I can just say, hey, Bryce, hey, Ashley, hey, Jackie, just change this on the Squarespace site. Hey, can we get this up on the Launch Festival site? Hey, can we get this up on the Launch Mobile site? Hey, on the Scale Conference, on this, on that. It instantly gets done. It's easy to use. Squarespace makes beautiful websites so simply. They have all these great design templates. You pick one, and all of a sudden, it looks like you spent $250,000 on your website. Literally, these designers are, a lot of designers are very upset. A lot of web shops are very upset about Squarespace. I've seen this many times where they would normally spend, people would spend $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 on a website, and Squarespace does it for dollars a month, like $10 a month. It's unbelievably affordable. And everything, it starts at $8 a month, by the way. Everything is responsive. So when you pull it up on your iPad or your phone, you have to pinch and zoom to see the website. It all just works. And you're not at, bent over a barrel by all these crazy developer freelancers who then disappear for months. They go, on a hike and they go bike across the United States while your website still isn't responsive or still isn't working. You need to have a professional group behind your website, and that is Squarespace. They also support e-commerce now, and they just keep adding features. Like they have a calendar feature that's really good right now, and there's all these little plugins and little, craftsmanship that make the site look so good. I love the product. You can start your free trial today with no credit card required, and when you decide to sign up for Squarespace, please use the offer code TWiST to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, build it beautiful. Build it beautiful. Please. It's a lot of ugly stuff going on in the world. A lot of ugly websites. Just use Squarespace and make the world beautiful. That's not their tagline. But I love beautiful websites. When I see a beautiful website for a conference, I buy a ticket. When I see a beautiful website for a product, I buy the product. When I see a beautiful website for a service or a startup, I want to meet with them. Go to squarespace.com and have a great, beautiful website. It's trusted by millions of people, including some of the most respected brands of the world. Their technology is state-of-the-art, secure, easy to use, scalable. You don't need to have a developer do it. I could talk for days. Thank you, Squarespace, for being one of my longest-running sponsors for This Week in Startups. I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Okay, let's get back to the program. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest today, Emily Kirsch. She runs, and she's Emily Kirsch, by the way, Kirsch on the Twitter, and she runs powerhouse.solar, which is an incubator in Oakland, and she started it in 2013. A couple of exits, too. Very nice. Well done. It's always nice to have those early exits. When we left for the break, thank you to our partners for making the show possible, I had heard from a friend of mine who was putting panels on their home that they were told they couldn't put as many panels as they wanted to. And they were like, well, I want to get the Tesla Powerwall, and I want to put a bunch of them on my Powerwall and be able to charge 3 Tesla. This is like rich people problems. But anyway, guy wanted to put, and the guy's not me, by the way, but the guy wanted to put, yeah, no, it's not me. I'm getting my 3rd Tesla. It's an addiction. Anyway, he wanted to put like 4 Powerwalls, and then power 3 Teslas, and then have more energy than he could ever use. And they told him, no, you cannot have this many solar panels. And I thought, what is this bullshit that you can't put as many solar panels? Is this true that there's a limit to the amount of solar you can put on your house? It's
true, and it is BS, and that's what I love about solar.
Emily. If you want to, you can say
it's bullshit.
It's just bullshit, isn't it?
It is.
Who made that rule?
The utilities that feel threatened by the increasing adoption of solar throughout the country.
So there's a utility that has some power that gets to decide, or lobbied somehow, the number of panels that can be put on a home.
Right. And it's based on your current production. So your friend who doesn't yet consume all that energy but wants to can't build a system or design a system suitable to power their anticipated needs.
What senator or congressman got paid off some Hawaiian vacation or something to come up with such a fakaka rule?
I think it's reflective of this century-old energy infrastructure that's based in fossil fuel.
It was a rhetorical question, but yes, thank you. You're very charming. It's very charming, Emily. I was being a little bit.
But to your point,
it's so infuriating though, because I'll tell you, like what I understand, and you correct me if I'm wrong, these utilities now have people working at them who are trying to figure out how they exist in the world post-solar and post-local energy. When in fact, we should be telling those people, you will not exist if we do it right, and we should be incentivizing those people to put themselves out of a job. But they're circling the wagons and saying, how do we burn more coal? How do we provide more services to these consumers? It's some weird backwards incentive.
I agree. And it's a great segue into one of the companies that you mentioned, Utility API.
Okay, I got that on my screen right now. Perfect timing.
Perfect. So the co-founder and CEO of Utility API, a woman named Alina Lucas, she used to work at PG&E. And she saw firsthand how difficult it was for people who wanted to go solar to get access to their own utility bill data. And the reason why you need the data is, let's say you want to go solar. The first step is you have to send the solar company 12 months of your utility bills because they use that to design the right system for your home.
Got it.
As it is now, in order to get that data over, you have to either download the bills and email them or get on the phone with the utility and the solar company. It takes a long time. It's really inefficient. It costs solar companies a lot of money. So Alina said, this isn't working and it's not right. People deserve instant access to their utility bill data. So her and her co-founder teamed up to build Utility API. And what they do is get data out of the utilities into the hands of solar companies who can use it instantly. So as long as you, as the potential solar customer, grant access, then they can do it in a matter of seconds, what used to take minutes, days, weeks, months.
Right, because the utility has no incentive to get you your data if they know that that data is going to convince you to leave their platform. What happens if Elon succeeds with these power walls and every home has a power wall? What happens to energy?
Energy becomes locally produced and consumed and sold, and all these peer marketplaces that we've seen with Uber for transportation and Airbnb for homes, eventually that will happen for energy. We will produce and consume and sell.
Peer energy. That means if I have extra energy, I can give it to my neighbor if you're living next to me in Oakland?
Eventually. And if you have your own storage system, then it never has to go to the grid. You actually get to use the energy that you produce when you get home. So you're producing the most energy in the middle of the day. You're not home. You get home, and rather than having to buy that energy from the grid, you actually get to use what you've produced because it's sitting in your Powerwall or whatever the storage system
so if I'm like some person with no kids and a big house and it's empty all day and have solar, and you don't have solar panels and you've got like 5 kids running around and everybody's at home during the day, air conditioners blowing and pool heaters going, I could actually give you my energy. You would pay me for it.
Eventually, yes. And there are some startups that are already working on that.
So this is a really stupid question. Are the power lines designed to, I know that you can send energy back to the grid, but are they designed to route energy from one home to another?
Not yet.
How does that work? If it would work, how would that work? You would have to have some sort of like hubs or something?
Yeah, localized storage hubs so that the energy that's produced goes to those local hubs so that another local person, a neighbor, for example, could use it rather than having to go all the way back to the centralized utility and then back to your next door neighbor.
Got it. And how much do you lose when you go all the way back to the utility and all the way back to a home? Do you lose like 10, 20% each way? Or?
It's a good question. I don't know the exact number of reduction, but it is a huge, the longer the transportation, the more energy you lose and the less efficient it is. So it's a big case for localized energy.
So the Powerwall is fantastic. You have that in your house. But then eventually every block or every 10 blocks, we could have a huge battery pack that all the homes put into and then gets redistributed back to the homes that need it.
Exactly.
I think it's possible in our lifetime to make energy free. And could I not donate my extra solar to my neighbors? Or would PG&E come with some fakaka rule where I can't do that because it's against the rules?
No, eventually you could. And there is a startup, I believe, called GridMates that's working on that now, on donating extra energy that you produce.
This is where the barter economy could totally put these utilities could KO them,
Right.
knock them out. Because for me, I would rather just donate my energy from my house. Let's say I had a house, in Sonoma or something like that, and I'm up there whatever, once every week, and I don't use it 6 days a week. I would rather my energy just be given to the school or to my neighbors, or maybe there would be some low-income housing, and I could just, the people who maybe didn't have as much wealth in the country could just get their energy free.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?
It would be a beautiful thing. And I think there is, though, a role for utilities that we're seeing in Europe, a lot of utilities where renewable energy is so much further advanced than in the States. And those utilities have already woken up to the fact that if they do not transition to renewables, they will be out of business. So we've seen Total, one of the biggest oil and gas companies in France, do major investments into solar companies, including one here in Richmond, California called SunPower. We've seen E.ON, one of the largest utilities in Germany, invest heavily in Sungevity, an Oakland-based solar company that now employs 1,000 people, of which my co-founder is also the co-founder of Sungevity.
Wow.
So there are these trends, at least in Europe, and I think we're going to increasingly see utilities in the States making those kind of investments and even acquisitions of renewable companies here, because they are waking up to the fact that there's a role for them to play, and an important one, but they have to play it if they want to stay involved in the energy game.
Okay, PV Complete, solar design platform, automation for solar project design. This sounds like a great one. This is like Autodesk for solar or something?
Exactly. You spot on. And they actually exist in the AutoCAD environment. So they reduce design time of solar systems. So if you want a system design, they're focused on the commercial sector. But if you want a system design, they reduce that design time by 300%. And designers are expensive. So throughout the value chain, we talked about Bright Current, which gets the customers. Utility API gets the data. Now PV Complete does the design.
Wow. And I bet you these are all components of Solar City internally. So it's sort of unbundling some of their things and doing it better. Do any of these companies sell into Solar City?
They do.
So I would think that the API one, I heard the pitch for the API one, and they were selling into Solar City leads or something. Now, what about satellites? Identifying where to put them, because I heard a pitch from a satellite company that said their biggest market was going to be solar firms buying leads, because they could actually take a picture of a home and then automatically know the angle or whatever and be able to just slap the things on. Is that happening too?
It is. Actually, there's a company in Oakland, the one I mentioned called Sungevity, that 1,000 people now across the country and around the world, they were the pioneers in that. So they said, hey, wait, we don't have to go to your house and get up on a ladder and take measurements. We can actually get a more accurate design if we use satellite data to design the system. So they pioneered that. Now that's industry standard. Every company in the country and many around the world are using that kind of process to design systems.
All right, let me ask another dumb question, since you're...
No dumb questions. No dumb questions.
Well, let me ask the question first, and we'll decide. Why can't I just buy on Amazon, or can I, or at Costco, or from Instacart, a bunch of solar panels, throw them on my roof, and run a cable and plug it into my home and not get all this installation? Are there DIY kits where I could just say, I just want to easily put together some solar and plug in some devices to it? Shouldn't this be, everything seems to be self-serve. Will there come a time when I can buy a bunch of batteries, buy a bunch of solar things in a kit, or my daughter could be I want to build some solar for the house, and they just throw some panels out and they just DIY it? What happened to the DIY, do-it-yourself movement?
I think solar in the U.S. started as there were a lot of DIY projects.
Right.
And then as the industry grew, the utilities and regulatory bodies got involved, in part because it is electricity. You can kill yourself. So there are some safety reasons why you have to have an electrician and a accredited installer actually do the installation. But I think for kids and for people who are into DIY projects, you actually can just buy panels. But in order to interconnect to the utility, you have to have it done by a certified contractor, an electrician. If you want to be totally off grid, you could, in theory, just have your system and have storage. So that's
some people are doing it. I actually did a search for it last year, because I was I wonder if there's a startup, thinking like you do, because I have an incubator. I was I wonder if there's a startup opportunity for somebody to just make a DIY kit that would be for. You talked earlier about people maybe who, just want to try it out, just play with it a little bit. Maybe they don't have the ability to put in the $30,000 system, or they don't have the rights to do it, but they do rent a house and they could just throw them in the backyard or have their kids set them up. But you wouldn't be able to plug it into the grid.
Correct. Correct. But I do think we will increasingly see the standardization of systems. And so, IKEA, and you mentioned Costco, Home Depot, I think we'll see more and more trends into that space.
See, here's how I would do it. This is the start. This is a request. I do this sometimes. This is an RFS, request for startup. Here's a startup I want somebody to build. I'll invest in it if you make it. And maybe you go to your incubator. We could do this together. I want somebody to make a solar system that plugs into like a UPS, like a power, like a battery, that then has a power strip on it that you could just throw literally on the ground in your backyard or whatever, fold it up, put it out there, and then it powers a small battery that would be intended to power, let's say, a refrigerator in your garage or something, but or like a couple of computers. Not like a major thing, but you could take one appliance or one power strip and just charge, like there's some of these like people who they ran out of things to buy for their home office, they buy a UPS. So that when the power goes out, their computer doesn't get interrupted. They could save their document. But you have autosave now, so it doesn't matter. But those things that people used to have under their desk. Like, does that exist? Like, where I could like literally run the cables from my backyard, and just ghetto style, throw them through a window or under the garage door, and then have them plug in the refrigerator, the meat freezer in the garage.
Do you really have a meat freezer?
You know what? It's interesting. I've been getting into this grass-fed beef thing. Is a big trend, and you buy like a quarter cow or a half cow.
Right, you need it.
And then, so I do need a meat freezer.
Gotcha. Okay.
Also, I'm a bit of a serial killer, so
I gotta go.
For serial killers out there, you can do this as well. No, but like
you're right.
For like a single-use thing to just like proof of concept, like that doesn't exist in the world.
It's interesting. In the States, not so much, but fascinating trends in emerging markets for places that are totally off-grid. You're talking about that people have that exact system.
They do.
It's, a single panel on a roof or in somebody's, yard.
To what kind of battery? Like a car battery?
It could be car batteries. Lead acid is what has been most popular. There's trends towards flow batteries now, but point being that people are getting access to electricity for the very first time because of solar, and they're able to power a couple lights and maybe a refrigerator. That clinics are able to power refrigeration for their vaccines, and it's part of a trend that was reported by Bloomberg New Energy Finance, who had this incredible report that came out that said by 2040, so in 25 years, the solar industry across the world will be worth $3.7 trillion.
Trillion with the
Trillion
T.
T.
So Bloomberg, this is Mike Bloomberg's money. He's got this energy fund. So he decided, because he's got so much money, he'd put a certain amount of it towards energy. And it's not just like he wants to be a capitalist in energy. He's trying to actually reduce global warming. He's actually one of these crazy guys who actually believes the science and that there's actually global warming occurring, as opposed to the Republicans who believe that this is all made up.
Right.
It's so embarrassing.
It is. It really is. But yes, this report, 3.7 trillion, 2.2 trillion of that in distributed systems, which means it's on our homes and schools and hospitals, not in huge centralized systems out in the desert, and 1 trillion of that in emerging markets and places where they have been off grid, where the kind of system that you're talking about, this kind of DIY, one panel, a small battery, that changes lives. So we're going to see $1 trillion worth of investment in that over the next 25 years. So when your
incredible.
Daughter, who I think is 6, is that right?
She's 6 now,
When she's as old as me, the
31?
industry is worth 3.7 trillion.
Wow. Today she came up to me and she showed me her money. She had like a purse full of pennies and dollars, and she said, "This is enough to start a company."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh my God, I love you."
What kind of company would you start?
I told her, like, listen, you're not starting companies. we're just going to have you start investing in them.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
They asked me to take the giving pledge. I said, I already took it. I'm giving it to my daughter to do angel invest. Everything I do is giving. I'm just giving money to startups. Listen, this has been fascinating. I think this is, there's one more company. I don't want to leave out one of your companies because that would be hard for you politically if I left out
It's true.
one of them.
Thank you.
So I'm running an incubator. I know how this works. So RA Power Management. Tell me about this one.
Sure. So Raw Power Management. So they
Raw?
do Raw, like the sun
Like
god.
the sun
Raw,
god.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm like RA Power Management. I kind of missed it.
That's okay.
Yeah, Raw.
So Raw Power Management. So the founder, George Zvagan, who worked at Sunrun and then at Solar City, doing their asset management. So managing $1 billion worth of solar assets. And incredibly, that asset management was happening in Excel. And anyone who who lives and works in Excel knows that it's extremely prone to human error.
Yeah.
So he was catching, at times, literally $1 million mistakes.
Of course.
And he said, look, there's a better way. This has to be done in the cloud. And so he pitched the idea to his boss at the time. His boss said, awesome idea, but we're totally focused on growth. So no, sorry, just hire more analysts.
So he made it, a SaaS platform.
A SaaS platform for asset management. It's all the financial service and operations at the end of, once the systems are installed, how they're managed.
Everybody prototypes like in Excel, and then, like Salesforce was in Excel. Like everything is like a prototype in Excel. And then somebody's like, you know what, this could be an actual SaaS platform.
Exactly.
And people wouldn't have to buy Excel and have it crash and not work. So how often do you run the incubator, and what are the terms? How does that work?
Sure. So 2 parts to the Powerhouse, Incubator and Accelerator. We describe the Incubator as the collaborative co-working space that anyone who wants to pay to be there, kind of like we're here at WeWork, they can pay for a desk on a monthly basis.
All right, so $500, $600, $700, you get a desk?
It's only $450.
Oh, right, you're in Oakland.
We're in Oakland.
Yeah, it's a little cheaper.
A little cheaper. So many companies are in the incubator. And
so you don't make any money off those. That's just hanging out.
Correct. That's just they're hanging out. They're creating community and at all the events, and they're great, and I love them. But the companies that I love even more are the ones that we invest in, and that's what we do in our accelerator. And the accelerator is a 6-month program. We run it twice a year, and it's only 4 companies per cohort. So we only do 8 companies a year.
And do you have a weekly session every other week?
We do. Yeah. No. Every
week for 6 months.
Every week. So Tuesday, I meet with them. We go into strategy. We look at the vitals of the company, go through this dashboard. Wednesday, we do something called Open House, where all of the founders and CEOs and partners in Powerhouse talk to one another and share who they are, what they do, what they're working on. Do they have questions? Do they have anything to offer?
Like a round table or something.
Exactly. And then
how many people come to that?
Anywhere from like 15 to 25, 30.
Okay, so it's intimate.
Very intimate, very intimate. We do questions like, what's your favorite podcast? Or what's your...
I can answer that. This Week in Solar.
There you go. And then on Thursday, we bring in industry experts, people like we had VP of Environmental Finance for Wells Fargo last week. This week, we have Seth Wiseman, the General Counsel of Solar City. So really incredible people who have tremendous insight into the industry that they share with our entrepreneurs.
It's amazing how many companies there are here in the Valley going after this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the fastest growing energy industry in the world. And trillions of dollars, somebody's going to make that money.
Well, now, you're focused on solar, but if a company that really had something innovative in wind or tidal energy or something like that, you would not be interested in them.
No, it's interesting.
Why so religious about it? I don't get it. You just love the sun.
It's the solar
ocean.
It's the solar doctrine. No, I'm just a believer in sunshine. But no, I think 3 things that make Powerhouse unique. One is that we are solar specific, and we're obsessive about our knowledge in the solar industry. And we were told by many people when we were started, and even today, why don't you expand? Why don't you get more deal flow, more potential exits if you did clean tech more broadly? And what makes us unique, and I think what's made us successful to date, is our obsessive focus with the solar industry, and even within solar, focused on software and finance. So our investors don't have to be convinced that solar is going to be this $1 trillion industry. They know that. It's what companies should I be investing in now when they're really early and I can get really good terms. Yeah.
So you put a little bit of money in for these. So what is it, like a standard like $25K for 5% or something? Or
it's
50K?
Even less. It's as of now, it's $10K. We're going to be raising that to $100 soon, and $25 initially, $75 reserved for add-on capital because our companies keep raising rounds and we need to be able to keep our stake in the companies. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so twice a year. 6 months each time. That's so you're going to do 8 a year.
Exactly.
And you've done how many so far?
We've done 3 rounds so far.
Oh, wow.
And
so about 10, 12 so far?
Exactly. And our current batch is just started on Monday of last week.
How many legitimate companies apply? Like, in other words, just sort of backing into what your acceptance rate is. Are there 50 companies each cohort?
No, it's a great question.
25?
It's invite only. And the reason why is because I don't want them to waste their time on an application that we're not going to accept. We only invite about a dozen to apply, and then we'll choose 4 of that.
So dozen. You are researching constantly what's being funded by Angel or just meeting with people and networking, and then you invite them to join.
Exactly.
It's kind of how my incubator is going too, which is like, we have I probably had 1,000 people for 14 slots this time, and 500 of them filled out applications, and the other 500 came from people who are friends of mine over the last 6 months saying, hey, would you consider this one? Would you consider that one? And I think majority, I picked the first 7 or 8 from just my friends' recommendations.
Exactly. So much of it is relationship based, and that's 3 things make us unique: solar specific, the fact that we do only take 8 companies a year, so that the attention is very individualized, and it sounds like that's the case for you as well.
If you look at like Y Combinator, like they're now up to 120 per cohort. And listen, they expanded to 20 partners or whatever, so they're casting a really wide net. That's great, but it does mean gosh, when you graduate them, the bottom 20 are not going to be in great shape.
Right.
And they're not going to get a very specific attention. It'll be an interesting experiment to see if doubling or tripling the number of YC companies a year results in double or triple the number of unicorns, let's say.
Yeah, it's a great
or not.
question. Yeah.
I mean, if it does, great.
Right.
And then it was worth it. If it doesn't and creates a bunch of $50 million companies, I guess it's still worth it. So,
Right.
I mean, I guess you can criticize it in that it's really annoying as an investor to have to sit through 100 2-minute pitches over 2 days. But ultimately, it might be the right decision because you help more people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like having that many because I like to, as the head of the incubator, don't you like to get to know them?
Exactly. And I think most
on a first name basis.
Right. And with YC, they have the reputation where if you're on stage, that's instant credibility.
Yeah.
But for most startups, investors, customers, it's relationship based, and that takes time. And so having the level of intimacy that we have in the accelerator helps build those relationships over time. Then ultimately, we've seen that's what gets deals done.
That's the problem. I actually think that's the big problem for YC is that by expanding so quickly, that it's harmed the reputation because you have VCs coming out publicly saying too many.
Right.
Like they literally have said it publicly to the press on record. Like, yeah, the quality's not there. It's like, if VCs will go on record and risk their relationship with Y Combinator by saying it's too many, that they have some conviction.
Absolutely.
I like doing a smaller class. It's like I like to be able to remember everybody's name.
Yeah.
As and I like to know where they're from and what they're thinking. Once you get past 7 or 14, it's like
it's hard.
Can't even remember everybody.
I agree.
What's the world going to look like in 20 years in terms of energy if it seems like we're pretty focused on this. I wouldn't say like we're as focused as I'd like to see it, or maybe you'd like to see it. I would like to see us be like Manhattan Project level focus, like on this issue. But it seems like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But if we continue at this pace of what I'll call, good focus as a country, as a planet, we're pretty. That's maybe a 7 or 8 in terms of how focused we are. If we continue that way for 20 years, what's the world going to look like in 2036? No, 2036. What will the world look like?
2036.
In 2036, in terms of energy.
Right. To start, going back to that Bloomberg study, there'll be a $3+ trillion solar economy to start.
We know that. So that's a lot of money at stake.
Yeah, somebody's making a lot of money, and there's 1.5 billion people around the world right now that don't have access to electricity. And another billion, about 20% of the world's population.
Wow.
Another billion people who have intermittent access. So the kind of innovation that's happening now, even when it's starting in the States and it's applicable to our lives, there are services and products that are being adapted for emerging markets. Yeah. And, we saw in that study, $1 trillion worth of value is going to be created in those emerging markets. So I'm really excited about the future. I think despite a lot of the doom and gloom that we hear on the climate change side, and that's very real, there are also entrepreneurs working every day on solutions that will allow everyone around the world to power their lives with sunshine, and that's really exciting.
It's going to really take all this stuff going on in the Middle East. There's a lot of strife and people living in like the religious era, and the rest of the world's kind of like, oh yeah, no, women and gays have rights too, but like the oil has kind of given them a pass. What's going to happen to those regions, do you think, like if solar becomes the dominant, majority force, which is what we're all predicting, right? 20 years from now will be the dominant force of electricity creation. What happens to the Middle East, do you think?
It's a great question. I think so much of the peril that we've seen in the Middle East is climate related. Yeah. It's droughts that disrupted the agricultural system, which caused people to leave their homes and go to the cities, and there was unrest in the cities, and that created a lot of the migration crises that we're seeing now. So ultimately, this all does come back to climate, and it does come back to energy challenges, but also energy opportunities. Yeah. And that, that's what motivates me every day, is to work with people who, yes, they have an interest in making a lot of money, but they also have an interest and a passion for doing good in the world and for making a difference. And when you put those together, I think we're unstoppable. Yeah,
I'm really optimistic about it. I think solar is just tremendous. And like if we really get these panels dialed in at the same pace we're doing, like, I don't know, is there going to be another 90% decrease in cost, or are we getting towards the end of that train?
I think we're getting towards the end of the cost reductions we'll see in hardware, but the cost reductions in software have only just begun, and that's what our focus is at Powerhouse, is to reduce those soft costs and to see the same dramatic reduction that we saw in hardware in software.
Because clean water is really a function of energy. Like, you can do these... you can do desalination. That's just an energy issue. And then this ability to take water from the air. What do they call it? It's a big fancy word for it. But anyway, capture water from the air. That's also an energy issue. And we could actually solve water. And if you solve water, I think you kind of solve agriculture.
They're absolutely interlinked, and even solar is interlinked there too, because so much of energy goes to agricultural uses, pumping water, water irrigation. So yeah, the solutions all overlap, and everything we do in our lives is powered by something. And right now it's powered by fossil fuel, but it's beginning to transition to being powered by renewables. So whether it's agriculture, the studio, or people who are listening, your laptop right now, your phone that you're listening to this podcast on.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you, Emily Kirsch, for coming on the program. You can follow her at Emily Kirsch on the Twitter, and you can join Powerhouse. That's the Twitter handle, join Powerhouse on Twitter, and powerhouse.solar. When is the next class?
Next cohort applications are due end of May.
End of May.
That's right. But in the meantime, we have a lot of awesome public events that are listed on our website, hackathons, data science for sustainability, all kinds of awesome events that we encourage everyone to come and check them out.
Cool. I want to get that request for startup going, where somebody makes like a kit that's as beautiful as the solar kit that Apple would make. Like, if it was that beautiful, that I would want to keep it in my car and take it out when I'm on vacation or whatever, and just have that the little uninterrupted power supply. Like, if Apple made it and it was gorgeous and it was plug and play like Legos, oh my God, that would be so juicy. I
love it.
Well, I was looking for camping too, because I was thinking about buying a little piece of land and putting an Airstream on it kind of situation. And I was like, well, why do I even need to plug into the grid if I had a power battery pack and a solar thing, and I'm only going up there every week or two? I could have the solar build up the battery, and maybe that would be enough for a weekend. I don't know. And I started researching it, and I was like, wow, it's just, everything's very ganky and not well constructed and not good looking, and
it's true.
Easy. Somebody's got to make that packaged, gorgeous solar kit that you can just pop up in your backyard.
And eventually you'll wear it. It'll be your laptop case. It'll be your cell phone cover. We'll be charging everything
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Awesome. Let's just hope Let's just hope a meteor doesn't hit the Earth. We're going to get all these problems will be solved. And that's everybody, when I ask anybody smart, what they think is going to wipe out humanity, they're just a meteor or a pandemic. We've got to work on those next. Yeah, somebody started that'd be a good one, a pandemic incubator. Something specifically, the meteor incubator, specifically powerhouse.meteor. You're
I already bought it.
Startups designed to intercept the meteor on the way here and knock it out. Continued success. Thanks to our partners. And thank you, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, for setting up such great interviews for me to do. Bye-bye.